Hello, and welcome to this live streaming session. My name is Laurie and I run the Mindful Eating Clinic. And what do? Well, I help people have a better relationship with food, to manage their weight in a healthy, non-diet, non-restrictive way. And to also nourish themselves through improved nutrition. And so that's what I try and do every day through my presence on YouTube, through my Facebook page, through my Instagram page, through my posts, and through sessions like this today, which you may be watching live. Hello, Chris, thank you for joining. Or which you may be watching on catch up, or indeed listening to via podcast. You are most welcome, however you have chosen to join me today, and thank you very much for that. So today's session is talking about little steps rather than big leaps. And there's a lot of talk, in fact, a lot of the time during the year, about making changes and about making bold statements. This happens to be going out in January when there's a lot of talk around resolutions. And I think that it doesn't really matter what time of year it is. My message applies at any time to say that what we want to do to make a behavioural change is to look at small steps rather than big leaps. And particularly when we're talking about eating. Okay, so if we are looking at how we eat, we're looking at wanting to improve our health, we're looking at maybe wanting to lose weight, maybe to adopt a more healthy eating pattern, it's very easy, isn't it, to really go for it and to think that what we need to do is to make a really bold, dramatic statement, because surely that's going to work much better to sort of clear everything out and to banish previous eating behaviors, you know, to really wipe the slate clean and start again. And I think we can be lulled into a sense that that's the only way to do it, that it needs to be really dramatic. And I think actually that the dieting industry fuels a lot of that as well, because it talks about tracking, and it talks about eliminating certain foods. In fact, sometimes it talks about eliminating whole food groups, and doing really things that are quite drastic, you know, really big gestures. But the problem with that is, if we break down how behavior and habits are formed, they are formed over a very long period of time, you know, and by a long period of time, that could be a few months, but that could also, particularly in terms of eating, that could be over years. And so if you think about it logically, if you want to address eating behaviors that have been part of your psyche and part of your life for a long time, how is a very quick or a very extreme or a very abrupt way of changing it actually going to logically work? A big instant dramatic change, it may work in the short term, and of course that's why sometimes diets work in the short term, but in the long term, all you're doing is really applying a short fix of willpower. You're not actually getting to the bottom of those behaviors that actually you're trying to change, you know. And those could be quite deep-rooted eating behaviors like I had, or they could be just the fact that you've just got into eating quite a lot of less nutritious food. But actually it doesn't really matter what those behaviors are. The key is that they need to be taken slowly, and that those steps to put them right need to be done quite gently, so that learned behavior can then start to be unlearned. So all of that way that we react around food, a lot of the associations, a lot of the connections are in our subconscious, because our subconscious learns what it thinks that we need. And our relationship with food is quite complex and very often emotionally driven, emotionally connected. And our subconscious just really wants to give us messages or suggest behaviors that it thinks are good for us. So, for example, if we have over a long period of time looked after ourselves emotionally through food, then our subconscious is going to give us that message because it thinks that that's what we need. And so if we just have quite an extreme, right, I'm not going to listen to my emotions, I'm not going to eat comfort food, I'm not going to have chocolate, that's actually pushing away that message without actually explaining to our subconscious why we're getting that message in the first place, and understanding it and having an internal dialogue, having a conversation that says, oh, okay, I understand why you're telling me to eat chocolate, because you think that's what I need. Actually, I could have some chocolate, but actually I'm going to make these little steps. And one of the little steps that I'm going to take is that I'm actually going to phase out chocolate. I'm only going to have it once or twice a week rather than every night. And then gradually that behavior then becomes something that we just learn, that we don't actually have to do in a particularly forceful way. You know, it's not about willpower, it's about retraining. It's a little tiny step that we have made that we're much more comfortable with, and that our subconscious is comfortable with. And our subconscious then doesn't keep giving us the same message, because it understands that it's not a message that's applicable every single time. And so if you're looking to make changes, oh, thank you, I've got a lovely little comment here that I'm going to read. So useful. Don't know about anyone else, but I definitely don't take the time to consciously consider. Yeah, and that's it. And thank you, Chris. And when I coach people, I talk a lot about internal dialogue. I talk a lot about being kind and taking it gently and understanding what's going on, and not beating yourself up about any of your eating behavior at all. Absolutely not, because there's always going to be a reason for it. So understanding it is really, really key, and not saying, right, I don't like the way I'm eating, I'm going to just have 1,000 calories a day, or I'm going to have 3 shakes a day, or I'm going to live on protein bars because surely that will fix it. Well, you might lose a bit of weight, and you might feel good during that initial sort of period of, God, yeah, this is great, this is really strict, and this is bound to help me. Of course it is. But it won't last. It absolutely won't last, because you're not getting to the bottom of where that behavior is actually coming from, where that habit is coming from. And so, a bit like habits, perhaps negative habits, creep up on us, we need those positive habits to be allowed to creep up on us as well. A big change is a big fail. A small change is a small win. That's my little catchphrase for today. In fact, I like that so much, I'm going to say it again. Big change, big fail. Small change, small win. And out of small wins come more small wins. So if you want to change how you eat, maybe you want to improve the quality of your food, think about not just phasing out things that you think are less healthy for you, but think more about phasing in things that are more healthy. so that you don't feel deprived. You're just replacing perhaps some of those less nutritious foods with more nutritious foods, which are going to help you both psychologically and physically. So it feels like a positive little step. If it's about changing perhaps an eating pattern, which might be a tendency to overeat, think about getting more of a routine, more of a pattern into your eating. I know when I self-fixed myself from my binge eating, I actually started eating 3 times a day, no more, and key to this, no less. So finding a rhythm will really help that. And actually, if you do have a problem with overeating, something that you want to do something about, I do actually have an online course which addresses lots of factors that might be contributing to that overeating. But a lot of it is about, as I said before, understanding what the behavior is and trying to find a rhythm. So that's a second one. So the first one, phase in as well as phase out. The second one, try and get a better rhythm to your eating, perhaps 3 meals a day, no more, no less. And the third one is take time. So this is a real mindful eating thing. A third lovely little step that you can all take is to take the time to eat mindfully, which means that you are learning to tap into whether you're hungry or not, and when you're eating, whether you're full or not. In other words, whether you need any more. Start to savor, start to really enjoy food, and that will discourage you from eating foods which are less nutritious, because you start to build up a real awareness of what you're putting in your body. So that's another little small step. And if you want some help with that, I've also got a course which is about simple steps to mindful eating, and that's available through my website. And I also have a YouTube video which talks about how to eat mindfully as well. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Don't forget, you can subscribe to me on YouTube, where there are several videos which I'm adding to all the time with coaching tips. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me also on Twitter, where I try and pop up with a few tips during the week. But so my big takeaway, if I had you all on loudspeaker, I would ask you to say it with me. Big change equals big fail. Small change equals the first of your small wins. Thank you so much for joining. If you want any support on any of the stuff that I've spoken about, please don't hesitate to get in touch.